Good morning and welcome. I'm Dan Haas, one of the outdoor grant managers that works in the Recreation Conservation Grants section. I will be presenting the Firearm and Archery Range Recreation Grant Program webinar today. The purpose of today's webinar is to give an overview of the Firearm and Archery Range Recreation, or FARR, grant program, and to let you know who may apply, provide an overview of the process and schedule, and to highlight some of the important details you will need to know as you apply for grant assistance. At the end of the webinar, I can assist in helping to answer questions. Also, it's important to note that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the RCO website for future reference. The Recreation Conservation Office is led by a governor-appointed director, and the Firearm and Archery Range Recreation Grant Program is overseen by the Recreation and Conservation Funding Board, which is made up of 5 citizen members and 3 state agency members. And today we have Scott Robinson, the RCO Deputy Director, and he would like to say a few things to those that are attending the webinar. Scott?
Thanks, Dan. Welcome, everyone. As Dan mentioned, I'm Scott Robinson. I'm RCO's Deputy Director. I began at RCO on this day in 2008, so I have a little history here, and prior to that, I worked for the Department of Natural Resources, where part of my responsibility was to apply for grants from RCO. On behalf of our Director, Megan Duffy, the Recreation Conservation Funding Board, and all of our staff here at RCO, I'd like to officially welcome you to the 2024 Fall Grant Cycle. The FARR grant program is very unique and very important, and over time we have funded over 150 projects that have supported different archery and firearm ranges. We've been gearing up for this program for the last year. We've made tweaks to our application database, we've hired new staff, and we have our Citizens Advisory Committee fully staffed and ready to review and score your projects in the coming months. One of the things I like to mention when I give my opening talks like this is a couple tips to help you be successful. So I'm going to talk about 3 things briefly, and later on, Dan will reiterate some of these things as well. The first tip I have for you is please review the manual on our website. Maybe print it out, write in the margins, do some highlighting, whatever you need to do to kind of thoroughly learn about our program. And there's also an application to-do list there that helps guide you through the process. Those 2 documents will assist you in submitting a complete application. Now, you'll probably have questions, so my second tip is to please contact your grants manager. They are here to answer questions and to help you be successful. They want to hear from you. They want to help you succeed. And finally, you're going to receive emails from RCO over the coming months, and those emails are meant to help you remember timelines and deadlines and things like that. I know you get a lot of emails, so please try to find those, try to maybe have them go into a separate folder, something like that, so we can help keep you on track. So those are my 3 tips. Read the manuals, contact your grants manager, and try to pay attention to our emails. Finally, at the end of the application cycle, we're going to send you a survey. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear how we did as an agency so we can get better in the future. So that's what I have for you this morning. I want to wish you the best of luck in your application, and I look forward to seeing your projects. I'm going to kick it back to Dan. Hope you have a great morning and great rest of your day.
Thank you, Scott. So let's begin with an overview of the FARR program. The Firearms and Archery Range Recreation Program provides funding for the acquisition and development of land and facilities for archery and shooting sports. Funding is awarded every 2 years and comes from a portion of each concealed weapon license fee. The awards for the FARR grants we are discussing today are for future projects. Grants will not be awarded until July of 2025. The FARR program funds shooting facilities such as archery and firearm ranges that are both indoor and outdoor. A wide variety of project elements are eligible, such as shooting stands, skeet houses, target holders, bullet traps, throwing machines, voice call machines, duck towers, safety baffles, fencing, and signage. The FARR program also funds projects involving support facilities. Eligible project elements, to name a few, include renovation of clubhouses, installing roads, pathways of travel, parking, restroom facilities, and picnic shelters. The FARR grant application is due October 31st. November 20th is the technical review date. Project technical review is when your application is reviewed by RCO staff and the evaluators. Feedback is then shared with you, and you have a chance to revise your application accordingly. The technical completion deadline is January 15th of 2025. At this point in the process, you will need to resubmit all materials. This will be the final submittal, and no changes are allowed. After final submission, you will have a final in-person virtual presentation, which will occur on February 20th, and our evaluators will score your project. After all projects are scored, RCO publishes the ranked list for the FARR program. In June of 2025, after the legislature reconvenes and finalizes the budget for the next biennium, the board awards the grants. There are two grant managers that are dedicated to the Firearms and Archery Range Grant Program. They are myself and Jesse Sims. We split the state in half. Jesse is responsible for projects located in Eastern Washington, and I am responsible for projects located in Western Washington. We are here to assist you with the application requirements and provide guidance through the technical review and evaluation process. As your grant manager, we will help you determine if your proposal will be both eligible and competitive in the coming grant round. Organizations eligible for FARR funding are cities, towns, nonprofit shooting organizations, special purpose districts, state agencies, school districts, law enforcement agencies, and park and recreation districts. To help establish eligibility, first-time applicants for FARR grants must submit a legal opinion from their legal counsel with their application. The opinion indicates that the applicant's organization is eligible to receive and expend state and federal grant funds and contract with the state of Washington and commit to our grant agreement. There is a template available in the grant application materials. There is a template available in the grant application materials with verbiage to consider. This is only required one time. So if your organization has previously applied for or received a FARR grant, this requirement has already been met. This legal opinion helps RCO decide if your organization can apply for and receive grants. Project proposals are classified by type. Acquisition projects are for grants to buy real property for recreation and conservation purposes. It is important to note a deed restriction known as a deed of right must be recorded on title to ensure the property is protected for outdoor recreation into perpetuity. Development projects are to construct new facilities or renovate existing facilities to extend their useful life. And lastly, there are combination projects which combine the acquisition of real property with development. The Recreation and Conservation Funding Board has established additional requirements for combination projects to ensure the funding is spent within the agreement period. If your project is combining land acquisition with another type of work, the board requires the new property to be secured at least 1 month before the 2025 board funding meeting. This can be done by acquiring the property under a waiver of retroactivity, have the property in escrow, or by obtaining an option to purchase the property. If you would like to learn more about combination project requirements, please contact your grants manager. The FARR program grant limits are not to exceed $150,000 per each project submitted. FARR grants require sponsors to bring in matching shares. To be eligible, match must be essential to the work that is being proposed in the grant application and must meet the FARR grant program's rules of eligibility. This simple illustration is meant to show how RCO thinks of match. There are elements that you want the grant to pay for, and there are project elements you plan to provide as match. However, RCO thinks of it as one big project, whereby everything must be eligible and follow all the same rules. Again, match is the sponsor's contribution to a project. State law requires applicants at a minimum to match FARR funds as follows. 33% match is required for projects dealing with noise abatement or safety improvements to existing range facilities only. 50% match is required for all other projects. Local governments and nonprofits must provide at least 10% of the total project cost from a non-state or non-federal source. Match may include the following: appropriations in cash, bonds, donations of cash, land, labor, equipment, and materials, and other grants, and the applicant's own labor, equipment, and materials. FARR grant funds are intended to be the last piece of the funding puzzle of a project, not the first. You will need to be able to certify that you have your matching resources in hand before receiving the grant funding. This is to ensure that projects that receive funding are going to be completed on time and aren't going to be delayed because the applicant isn't able to raise the funds needed to complete the project. You will need to certify all of your match by May of 2025 in order to remain eligible for RCO grant funding. There are two other unique requirements in the FARR grant program. First, applicants must conduct a public hearing or meeting if their projects will buy or develop range facilities where none currently exist or result in substantial new external impacts on the surrounding area. The second requirement is to satisfy RCO's range and course safety policy. The range and safety policy states, and I quote, RCO requires range and course facilities funded by the Recreation and Conservation Funding Board to be acquired, planned, designed, operated, and maintained to contain all projectiles on the property and to minimize noise impacts to nearby properties. Therefore, all funded projects that directly relate to shooting activities or noise and safety abatement must be constructed to contain all projectiles. Depending upon the type of facility, the design must meet guidance published by the National Rifle Association, National Field Archery Association, and the Archery Trade Association, end of quote. To determine whether a project meets RCO policy, projects that directly benefit shooting activities and noise and safety abatement projects must be evaluated by either a certified advisor from one of the associations listed in the RCO safety policy, or a professional engineer or other qualified professional consultant with experience and expertise in the evaluation and design of ranges and courses. And you can speak with your grant manager with help in getting the proper person lined up to do this for you. To satisfy the RCO range and safety policy prior to project construction, a project design self-certification form must be filled out, signed, and returned to RCO. Then, once the project is finished, the sponsor must fill out, sign, and return to RCO the completed project self-certification for the project to be closed. Both documents can be found on the RCO website on the FARR grants page. At the time a sponsor signs a FARR grant agreement with RCO, and continuing throughout the sponsor's obligation to the project, the sponsor must carry liability insurance with coverage for at least $1 million. The policy must insure by name the following: the state of Washington, the Recreation and Conservation Office, and the Recreation and Conservation Funding Board. The sponsor may use either its own funds, FARR grant funds, or a combination of the two to pay premiums on the policy. Now let's discuss how to apply for a grant. Applying for a FARR grant is done through our PRISM online sponsor bench application system. PRISM is an online computer system open to the public to apply for grants, review, and manage information on funded grants and produce reports about projects. PRISM stands for Project Information System. You can access PRISM from our website. Go to the PRISM page and click on PRISM Online. PRISM Online works best using the following internet browsers: Edge, Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. Internet Explorer is not recommended. This will launch PRISM Online, starting with the logon page. New users will need to create a new account. Once you have an account, you log on from the same screen. If you have any issues with logging in, please reach out to your grant manager please reach out to your outdoor grants manager for your geographic area, and they will be happy to help you, or they'll direct you to PRISM staff as needed. In order to access PRISM, you will now need to set up a Secure Access Washington or SAW account. So when you follow the link on our website, you may be navigated to this page instead. But don't be alarmed. Once you have created a SAW account, you can then link it to PRISM. Once you are logged into your SAW account, select Add a New Service. This is the next screen you will see in your SAW account, and it is here you can search for PRISM Online. The easiest option to find PRISM Online is browsing by the list of services by name, not by the agency. By the services by name, not by the agency. So essentially what we've found is that most people have been successful here by simply going in alphabetical order, putting in P for PRISM, and it should come up and you have access. Once PRISM Online is added to your SAW account, from there you will be able to enter PRISM. This is the first page you see when you log on. It displays some of the overall information about your and/or your organization's projects. To start a new grant application, click on the orange box on the top left that says New Application. This is the first page when you fill out general information and find more tools for getting started. In the left pane, there are links to pertinent information. These include planning requirements, a list of all RCO funding programs, the grant manager contact list, and several instructional videos on the many ways to navigate and use PRISM. The line for the sponsoring organization will automatically populate as you type in the field. And this is also where you will enter the formal name of your project. I wanted to point out the application navigation tree. This shows that a lot of information is needed to complete an application, so it's important to start early. You can also use this feature to go between pages within the application. The FARR grants managers are available to help and are one of your best resources. It is important to utilize both resources equally, the website and your grants manager. I will go over some of the website resources with you today. All of the manuals, program information, to-do lists, and templates are all online. To navigate to the FARR grant program page on the RCO website, you will want to click on Grants. This will pop up a list of grant programs. As you can see, FARR is at the top of the second column from the left. The FARR grant program page contains lots of helpful information, such as application timelines, the FARR grant manual, the to-do list, which contains a helpful step-by-step outline of the application process and describes all required attachments, Forms and resources specific to FARR program are also included there, as well as guidance and examples. It is highly recommended to download and save the manual and the to-do list, both highlighted here, as you will need to refer to them often throughout the application process. Now we'll move on to some important application requirements. You should be aware of a couple of application requirements that may take you a little while to complete. These include the following. Application authorizing resolution. This needs to be something that was formally adopted and signed by your organization that gives you authority to apply for a grant on their behalf. This means it needs to be approved by your council, commission, or board of directors. I know for some entities, this process can take a little while, so again, start early. Public hearing or meeting. Applicants must conduct a public hearing or meeting if their projects will buy or develop range facilities where none exist or result in substantial new external impacts on the surrounding area. And then finally, control and tenure, which means that you have documentation that you either own or have sufficient control of the property on which you are planning your project. Let's move on to the project evaluation process. FARR grants have a mandatory in-person virtual presentation. Circling back to the timeline, first you will submit the PRISM online application and all required attachments. Remember, that is the technical completion deadline. Then you will present a PowerPoint that addresses the evaluation criteria located in the FARR grant manual. Prior to the project evaluation in February of 2025, RCO offers what is called a technical review. During technical review, applications have the opportunity to share their projects with the evaluation committee. While it's not mandatory, it provides you an opportunity to hear from evaluators if they have significant concerns about your project, and it also provides you a chance to correct any issues based on their feedback. In fact, after technical review, you can still change anything about your project, including your budget and your project scope. After technical review and final resubmittal of your grant materials, there is the final evaluation. You will use the schedule evaluation feature in your PRISM online application to schedule a time to present your project to the evaluation committee. FARR grant applicants are required to present an in-person virtual PowerPoint presentation addressing the evaluation criteria in the FARR grant manual. This is done through Zoom from anywhere that has a good internet connection. You will have up to 12 minutes to present your project and 8 minutes for a question and answer session from the evaluators for a total of 20 minutes. As a reminder, the dates of these presentations are already identified on the webpage. The final schedule of presentations will be released a couple of weeks prior to the day and time you are scheduled to present your project. You will present your project to an advisory committee made up of volunteers who possesses a statewide perspective and are recognized for their experience and knowledge of firearm and archery ranges in Washington. They use board-approved criteria to score and rank projects, and they also have the opportunity to provide feedback and advice to RCO management. You will want to review the evaluation criteria, which can be found in the back of the FARR grant manual. This is how your project will be scored, and it's what separates one project from another. The evaluation criteria is what measures the differences in proposals and is the basis for the project rankings. Now let's talk about other considerations to be aware of. Developing a project budget. First, you will need to provide an accurate cost estimate for your proposal. This is the foundation for the grant funding request, evaluation, and ultimately the approved amount for a successful award. So it's very important to consider as much as you can up front, such as the project feasibility and permit requirements, the fair market value of any property being acquired, planning for inflation since grant funding will not be made available until July of 2025. Note the FARR grant program allows for cost increases. However, it is rare and requires board approval. So it's best to plan up front and not rely on additional assistance from the grant program. Under the Governor's Executive Order 21-02, every project must be evaluated for potential impacts to cultural and historic resources or to buildings and structures 45 years and older. The review is coordinated by RCO, and the result may indicate that further investigation or mitigation will be required, such as a survey or monitoring. We strongly encourage you to add some money to your project budget for this work in case it's needed. Unfortunately, we don't complete the cultural resources review until after your application is submitted. So it's important to add funding into your application up front, as you cannot add it later. It's also important to remember that you must receive clearance from RCO before starting any ground disturbing activities. Another important consideration when developing your project scope and budget is designing your facility to be barrier-free and accessible to all. Our agency has a commitment to making developed sites open and accessible to the greatest extent possible. And it's much easier and more cost-effective to incorporate these considerations early rather than through change orders and contract amendments. We have several resources on our website to guide you in making your project accessible. The main scope elements to always consider are pathways of travel, restroom facilities, and parking areas. Projects should be ready to implement upon funding. For this grant cycle, that will be July of 2025 at the earliest. Do not start until there is an executed grant agreement. You have completed cultural resources review and have all environmental clearances. You will be asked to establish project timelines or milestones, and we generally expect projects to be completed within 2 to 3 years. Please note that there are some eligible pre-agreement costs. Those include design, engineering, and permitting, and are valid up to 3 years from your agreement date. So if you are starting some of the work now, make sure you keep track so you can submit for reimbursement later if you are awarded a grant. Please refer to the FARR manual for more information on this. The most important document is the project agreement. This is the legal contract between your organization and the state of Washington for the grant funding. RCO administers the contract on behalf of the state. The project agreement contains the standard terms and conditions, the scope of work, the period of performance, the amount of grant funding, reporting requirements, and long-term compliance responsibilities. FARR grants come with long-term obligations to maintain and protect the project area after a project is complete. An acquisition project requires a deed of right that must be recorded prior to final reimbursement. This will ensure the land stays open and available for public use into perpetuity. A development or restoration project requires a 10-year-long obligation period starting from the day the final reimbursement is released for the project. We strongly recommend that you take a look at manual number 7, which is our long-term obligations manual, so you have an understanding of these responsibilities. I would like to wrap up with a few tips to help you be successful. The first thing is to communicate early with your grants manager. If you don't know who your grants manager is, feel free to email me and we can get you to the correct person. Establish a realistic scope, cost, and project budget. Get on our website now and save the to-do list and manuals, and be sure that they have been updated for the 2024 grant cycle. Start your application early so that you can get a sense of all the information RCO needs to evaluate your project. Start gathering letters of support to show that there is community support for your project. Be sure to include money for cultural resources costs And finally, allow for extra time for permitting and be sure to build enough money into your proposal that you can complete all of these requirements. Thank you for your time today. This concludes the FARR webinar. I'm open to answer any questions, and please just remember to hit the raise hand feature, and we are open for any questions. And we'll just give it a few minutes, a couple minutes here to see if anybody decides to. And if you have questions that you don't feel comfortable asking now, that's perfectly fine. Just know that you can reach out to your grant manager, either me or Jesse, and we can help you on a one-on-one basis as well. Okay, well, if no one's got any questions, I just want to end by saying I really, really do appreciate people's time. I know it takes time and effort to go through this process, but that's why we're here to help you. And we are very excited about the upcoming grant round. Looks like we do have one question coming in. And it says, are there grants for heavy equipment for rebuilding sand berms, such as tractors? I'm sorry, we don't. No, we don't have anything that pays for that kind of cost, that type of equipment under this program. The only program that I can even think where we purchase something like that is under our trails program, where they have what's called a mini excavator that's for trail work, but that's only for trails. That's the only piece of equipment that comes close to that. So sorry about that. No, we do not pay for those. Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I was going to ask for you to go over again the requirement. I believe you said a lawyer should certify that you can receive funding from the state.
Yeah, it's called a legal opinion, and it's only needed if there's no history whatsoever of if say it's a gun club, if that gun club has never ever asked for FAR funding in the past. Now, sometimes we can research that as your grant manager, and I can actually go back and find out, oh wait, your club did actually have a grant, but it was 20 years ago, and you're still good. You wouldn't have to do a new one. But if you've never done that, then that's going to be something that it would take longer for me to explain the ins and outs of what we would need to do there, but it's going to be a simple process. We can help you and instruct you on how to do it, but you just want to get with your grant manager if in reality we find out that this is your very first time applying, and we'll help you and we'll walk you through that.
Oh, yeah, that you mentioned there was a template on the.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find
Yeah.
that. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for attending today. Appreciate that.
Okay, I'll turn my microphone off. I don't see.
Or wait.
Okay, so Michelle's asking, can we have more than one project on the same grant? So no. I mean, what you would do is get with your grant manager. We would look at what the scope of work total is that you're wanting to accomplish. And then if it needs to be phased, we can break it into phases and you can come in and apply for phase one. But you cannot have you can't apply for one aspect of FAR to do one piece of a project and then the same applicant come, or excuse me, the same sponsor come in and apply for a second application within the same grant round. We don't do that. But what we can do is we can help you and look at what it is you want to accomplish. And many times we will find that there are several various different types of scope elements happening at one time that we can combine into one grant and do all of them together. But we just have to look at what the extent is of what you're proposing to do. Yeah, Dawn, go ahead. Dawn, I can't hear you. You might need to unmute. Okay. Yeah, Dawn, I see you there as posing a question, but if you don't have a question, then we'll just move on. I don't see your hand up anymore. So, and if it is something, okay, there you go. I see your hand now. Can you unmute? I can't hear the question. There you go. Okay. The microphone unmuted, but I'm still not hearing you, Dawn. Are you there? Yeah, Dawn, I'm sorry you're not coming through. If you want to put it in the chat, you can write the question in the chat. I could read it for the group. Or if you decide that you'd rather just talk with the grant manager directly, you can get a hold of me or Jesse later. But I'm sorry, right now, you're not coming through. I can't hear. Okay, we'll give just a couple more minutes just to see if any other questions come into the chat or pop up live, either way. Okay, well, I'd just like to say again, I appreciate everybody attending today. We are here to help. Go to our website. It will have the initial information that you need to get the process rolling. And then once you see the deadlines and the schedule that's there, please reach out to your grant manager to start to work with them, and they will guide you through the process. Thanks, everybody, and be safe out there. And we look forward to working with you all. Thanks.